Welcome to Calming Bedtime Journeys channel. Tonight we step quietly onto a frozen medieval battlefield where the cold does not simply surround you, it settles into your bones and waits. What was it truly like to sleep here under open skies with frost forming before your eyes and the ground harder than stone? You might imagine thick blankets, sturdy tents, perhaps even warmth lingering somewhere nearby. But the truth is softer, harsher, and far more human than that. So before you settle into the story, take a second to like the video and hit subscribe. And as you listen, feel free to share where you are in the world and your local time. Now dim the lights. You stand at the edge of the camp as evening lowers itself across the land, slow and quiet like a curtain drawn without urgency. The last pale light fades from the sky, leaving behind a dull grey that gently deepens into blue. The cold is already present. It does not arrive suddenly. It has been here all along, waiting for the sun to step aside. You notice it first in your hands, a faint stiffness, a quiet numbness that creeps in without asking. The air feels thin and dry as you breathe, each inhale sharper than the last. There is a smell too, something earthy and faintly sour rising from the trampled ground, where hundreds of boots have pressed the soil into a rough, uneven surface. The camp spreads out before you in loose formation, not ordered, not neat, but functional in a way that speaks of necessity rather than comfort. Small clusters of men gather around low fires, their movements slow and deliberate. The flames flicker weakly, never rising high, as if even the fire understands it must remain cautious here. A well-known detail from medieval warfare is that large armies rarely carried enough supplies for prolonged comfort, especially in winter conditions. Soldiers often relied on whatever materials they could find nearby, which meant that even before sleep, they were already adapting to scarcity. It was not unusual for entire groups to camp without proper bedding, trusting instead in habit and endurance. You take a few steps forward. The ground crunches beneath your boots, a thin crust of frost breaking softly with each movement. The sound is subtle, yet in the growing quiet it feels louder than it should. Around you voices murmur in low tones. Not laughter, not quite conversation either. Something softer, something held back. There is a strange calm here. It does not feel safe, but it does feel still. You pass by a group of soldiers crouched close together, their cloaks drawn tight around their shoulders. One of them rubs his hands briskly, exhaling into his palms, trying to trap what little warmth he can create. Another stares into the fire without blinking, as if the act itself might hold the heat in place. A curious detail that often surprises modern readers is that some soldiers deliberately avoided removing their boots at night, even when they were wet or stiff with cold. The effort of putting them back on in freezing conditions could be painful, or even impossible by morning. So they slept as they stood in a sense, fully dressed, fully burdened. You pause. The air shifts slightly, carrying with it the scent of smoke and damp wool. It settles into your clothes, your skin, your breath. You realize that this smell will not leave easily. It becomes part of the experience, as constant as the cold itself. Above you the sky begins to clear. A few stars appear faint at first, then sharper, as the last light disappears. They offer no warmth, only distance, only silence. You draw your cloak closer. It helps a little, but not enough. The cold presses in from all sides, not aggressively but persistently. It seeps through fabric, through leather, through layers that might have felt sufficient during the day. Now, in the stillness of night, they seem thin, insufficient. Historians continue to debate how much rest soldiers truly achieved during these conditions, especially before major battles. Some accounts suggest that exhaustion eventually overcame discomfort, while others imply that many passed the night in a half-waking state, never fully surrendering to sleep. The truth likely varied, shaped by weather morale and the simple unpredictability of human endurance. You move toward an open space where the ground has been cleared of larger stones and debris. It is not comfortable. but it is intentional. Someone chose this spot earlier, perhaps thinking ahead to the coming night. You lower yourself slowly. The cold rises immediately to meet you. It is not just beneath you. It moves through you. The earth feels solid, unyielding, and far colder than the air above. You shift slightly, trying to find a position that feels less severe, but there is no true relief. Only small adjustments. Only compromise. Nearby, a man lays down with a quiet sigh, pulling his cloak over his head, curling inward to protect what heat remains. Another follows, then another, until the space around you begins to fill with still forms, each one settling into their own small effort to endure the night. No one speaks now. The camp grows quieter, not all at once, but gradually, as if each voice chooses silence in its own time. You listen. There is the faint crackle of firewood collapsing inward, the soft shifting of fabric as someone turns slightly in their place, the distant sound of wind brushing across the open field, low and steady, and beneath it all a shared awareness. You're not alone here, but you are very much on your own. Your breath slows, in and out. You feel it in your chest, the rhythm steadying, not because the night is gentle, but because there is nothing else to do. Resistance fades. Acceptance takes its place, quiet and unspoken. You close your eyes for a moment. Not fully, not yet, just enough to rest them. The darkness behind your eyelids feels warmer than the air outside. It offers a kind of illusion, a small retreat from the sharpness of the world around you. You let yourself stay there, just for a moment. The cold remains. The ground remains. But something shifts inside you, a subtle adjustment, a recognition that this is how the night will be. And slowly, without ceremony, you begin to understand how sleep might come here. Not as comfort, but as surrender. You remain where you are, feeling the slow pressure of the ground beneath your body as the night settles more completely around you. The faint warmth you carried from standing fades, gradually replaced by a deeper awareness of the cold that lingers in every surface. It is patient. It does not rush. It simply waits for you to notice. Around you, the shapes of other soldiers begin to shift again, not from restlessness, but from quiet preparation. Sleep here is not something that happens by accident. It must be arranged, adjusted, and negotiated with whatever materials are close at hand. You open your eyes slightly. The fire nearby has dimmed its glow, reduced to a low orange pulse that barely reaches beyond its small circle. In that softened light, you begin to see how each man prepares his place for the night. There is no uniform method, only variations of the same simple idea. Create a barrier between your body and the frozen earth. A widely accepted detail from medieval military life is that soldiers rarely carried dedicated sleeping gear on campaign. Blankets were limited, and many men relied on their cloaks as their only protection against the cold. These garments, often made of wool, served multiple roles during the day and night, clothing, shelter, and bedding all in one. You shift your arm and reach beneath you. Your fingers brush against rough ground, then something slightly softer. Straw. Not much, but enough to notice. Someone before you has scattered it thinly across this patch of earth, likely gathered from nearby fields or transport supplies. It is uneven. Some places offer a faint cushion. Others reveal the hardness beneath. You gather what you can, carefully, pulling small clumps closer, spreading them beneath your shoulders and hips, trying to create a layer that feels at least slightly forgiving. It is not comfortable, but it is different. And here, difference matters. A soldier beside you does something similar, though with more urgency. He pulls loose straw from a bundle at his side, arranging it in a thicker layer before lowering himself down again. His movements are practiced, not hurried, just efficient. You notice how he places his cloak, not over himself at first, but beneath. He spreads it across the straw, smoothing it with both hands, creating a surface that separates him from the dampness below. Only after that does he fold another layer over his body, sealing himself between fabric and ground. It is a small technique, but it makes sense. A lesser-known detail found in some accounts is that experienced soldiers often preferred insulating the ground side first rather than covering themselves entirely. Heat is lost downward quickly, especially on frozen soil, so creating even a thin barrier beneath the body could make a noticeable difference over several hours. You try it, lifting your cloak, slightly adjusting its position so that part of it lies beneath you. The cold still presses upward, but now it feels less direct, slightly diffused. The difference is subtle, yet real. You exhale slowly. The air leaves your lips in a faint cloud that disappears almost immediately into the darkness. The temperature has dropped further. You can feel it in your face, in the exposed edges of your hands, in the way your breath feels sharper with each inhale. Nearby, another man uses his pack as a pillow. It is not soft, not in the way you would expect, but it raises his head above the ground, keeps it from resting directly on the cold surface. Others follow similar methods using helmets, folded clothing, or bundled fabric to support their necks. You consider doing the same. Your belongings are minimal, but you gather what you have, folding it once, then again placing it beneath your head. When you lower yourself back, the angle feels unfamiliar at first, slightly awkward, then slowly more natural. A quiet stillness spreads across the camp. Not silence, but something close to it. The kind of quiet that forms when many people are doing the same thing at once, each within their own small space. Movements slow, sounds soften. Even the wind seems to move more carefully across the open land. There is a faint scent of damp wool, and smoke, and earth. It settles around you, forming a kind of invisible layer that feels almost as present as the cold itself. Somewhere to your left you hear a soft rustling. Two soldiers shift closer together, their cloaks overlapping slightly. They do not speak. They do not acknowledge the movement, but the intention is clear. Shared warmth. Even a small amount can matter over the course of a long night. You feel the temptation to move closer to someone, to reduce the space between bodies, yet there is hesitation too. These are not close companions, not necessarily friends. Trust exists here, but it is practical, not personal. Each man balances comfort with caution, deciding how much closeness feels acceptable. You remain where you are. For now, historians still discuss how common it was for soldiers to sleep in tight groups during harsh weather. Some records suggest that huddling was frequent, especially in extreme cold, while others describe more separation due to concerns over theft or personal boundaries. Like many things in this world, the truth likely depended on the moment, the people, and the conditions. You adjust your position again, turning slightly onto your side, drawing your knees inward just a little. It helps. Your body begins to conserve heat more effectively, reducing the surface exposed to the air. The posture feels instinctive, almost automatic, as if your body already understands what it must do to endure. A short breath escapes you. Slow, measured. You close your eyes once more, this time a little longer. The ground is still firm beneath you. The cold still present, but now there is structure to your rest. A small system, a series of choices that make the difference between constant discomfort and something closer to tolerable. Around you the camp settles further. The last movements fade, the final adjustments complete, and for a brief moment everything feels balanced. Not warm, not safe, but stable. You let your breathing find a steady rhythm again, aware of the thin barrier between you and the earth, the weight of the cloak above the faint presence of others nearby. This is how sleep begins here, not with softness, but with preparation. You remain curled where you're aware now of every layer between your body and the frozen earth. The straw beneath you has settled into place, no longer shifting with each movement, and your cloak holds its position both above and below. For a brief moment it almost feels sufficient. Almost. Then you notice it again. The cold beneath you is not still. It moves. Not like wind or water, but like something quietly persistent, drawing warmth downward in a slow, steady exchange. The ground does not feel aggressive. It does not push. It simply absorbs, taking heat from your body without resistance, without pause. You become aware of your back, then your hips, then your shoulders. Each point of contact feels slightly colder than the last, as if the earth is mapping your shape through temperature alone. You shift your weight gently, trying to find a place that has not yet given up all its warmth. It does not last. The cold follows. A well-understood reality of sleeping outdoors in winter conditions is that heat loss through conduction can be as significant as exposure to cold air. Even a thin layer between body and ground can make a difference, but without proper insulation, warmth drains steadily over time. Medieval soldiers didn't use insulated pads or layered bedding in the modern sense. They relied on whatever separation they could create, often imperfect and temporary. You press your hand into the straw beneath you. It feels dry in some places, damp in others. Where it is damp, the cold feels sharper. You pull your hand back and tuck it close to your chest, hiding it beneath the fold of your cloak. The warmth there is faint, but it gathers slowly, protected from the open air. A soft sound reaches you. Someone shifting, then another. Across the camp, the same quiet adjustments repeat as bodies respond to the same discomfort. A shoulder lifts, a knee draws inward, a cloak is tightened just a little more. No one sleeps deeply yet. You open your eyes briefly. The sky above is clearer now, the stars more defined, scattered across the darkness with quiet precision. They seem closer than before, though you know they are not. The cold sharpens them, strips away the haze, leaving only clean points of light. Beautiful and distant. You exhale slowly, watching your breath fade into the air before disappearing completely. Each breath feels like a small effort, not because it is difficult, but because the air itself feels thinner, colder, less forgiving. Nearby, a man sits up halfway, rubbing his arms with both hands before lowering himself again. He mutters something under his breath, too soft to understand. Not anger, not fear, just discomfort given a voice. You feel it too, that quiet resistance, the body wanting something softer, something warmer, something that does not exist here. A lesser-known observation from certain medieval campaign journals suggests that soldiers sometimes dug shallow depressions in the ground before resting, attempting to reduce exposure to wind and create a more enclosed space. While not always practical, this small adjustment could provide slight relief, especially in open terrain where the wind moved freely. You glance around. In the dim light you notice a shallow indentation not far from where you lie. Someone has scraped away the top layer of frozen soil, creating a low hollow. It is not deep, not enough to shield entirely, but enough to lower the body slightly below the surrounding surface. You consider it, then slowly you shift toward it, carefully, each movement measured to avoid losing what little warmth you've gathered. When you settle into the shallow dip, the difference is immediate, though subtle. The wind brushes over you rather than directly against you, and the ground feels fractionally less exposed. It is not comfort, but it is improvement. You draw your cloak tighter around your shoulders, pulling the edge close beneath your chin. Your breathing steadies again, slower now, more deliberate. The rhythm begins to feel familiar, like something you can follow rather than something you must control. There is a faint creaking sound. Leather. Somewhere behind you, a soldier adjusts his gear, perhaps loosening a strap, perhaps shifting a piece of armor that presses too firmly against his side. The sound is brief, then gone, absorbed into the larger quiet. Historians still debate how frequently soldiers slept in full or partial armor during cold conditions. Some suggest that removing it reduced stiffness and allowed better rest, while others argue that keeping it on provided an extra barrier against wind and cold. The decision likely depended on urgency, safety, and the simple energy required to remove and replace it. You feel the weight of your own clothing, the stiffness, the slight restriction in movement. It is not comfortable, but it does offer a sense of containment, a layer that holds your body together against the cold. Removing it might ease one discomfort while inviting another. You leave it as it is. For now, a gentle gust of wind passes over the camp, low and steady. It carries with it a sharper chill, one that reaches the edges of your face and hands before fading again. You respond instinctively, tucking your chin lower, drawing your arms closer. A short pause, then stillness returns. You close your eyes again, allowing the darkness to settle more fully around you. The sounds of the camp have softened further, reduced now to occasional shifts and the faint crackle of distant embers. Your body begins to adjust. Not warming, but accepting. The initial shock of the cold has passed, replaced by a steady awareness that no longer demands constant attention. You feel it, but you are no longer reacting to every change. The sensations become part of the background, like the distant wind or the fading light. This is where sleep begins to approach. Slowly, carefully, not as an invitation but as a quiet possibility. You let your breathing deepen just slightly, each inhale drawing in the cold air, each exhale releasing a small measure of tension. The ground remains firm beneath you, the cloak thin but present the hollow offering its modest protection. Nothing has improved dramatically, and yet something has shifted. You're no longer searching for comfort. You are learning to remain. You lie still within your shallow space, aware now of the quiet rhythm settling across the camp. The cold has not eased, yet your body no longer resists it with the same urgency. Instead, something more instinctive begins to guide your movements, a subtle pull toward warmth, wherever it might be found. You notice it first as a presence. Not sound, not motion, just the faint awareness of others nearby. To your right, a soldier shifts closer inch by careful inch, as if unwilling to draw attention to the movement. His cloak brushes lightly against yours, the contact brief at first, then lingering as he settles. There is no acknowledgement, no glance. Only a shared understanding that space is flexible when the cold deepens. You hesitate. The distance between you and the next body feels deliberate, something you chose earlier without thinking, yet now it seems unnecessary. The air between you carries no warmth. It simply holds the cold in place. You move slightly, not much, just enough. Your shoulder edges closer to the man beside you, your cloak overlapping his by a narrow margin. The change is immediate though, delicate. The space between your bodies traps a faint pocket of warmth, something fragile but noticeable. It helps. A little. Across the camp, similar adjustments unfold in near silence. Small clusters form not through conversation but through instinct. Bodies align side by side, backs turned to the wind, knees drawn inward, cloaks pulled tight to create shared barriers against the night. A commonly accepted detail in accounts of medieval campaigns is that soldiers often relied on body heat when conditions became severe. Though rarely described in romantic terms, the practice was practical and widespread, especially when fuel was scarce and temperatures dropped below tolerable limits. Warmth became a shared resource, quietly exchanged without ceremony. You feel the difference more clearly now. The side of your body closest to another retains heat longer. The cold still presses from above and below, but the edge is softened slightly where contact exists. It is not comfort, but it is relief. A soft exhale escapes you. Slow, measured. The man beside you adjusts again, pulling his cloak tighter around both of you without asking. The fabric shifts, creating a thicker layer where it overlaps. You feel the weight of it settle across your arm, heavier than before, yet somehow reassuring. You allow it. There is trust here, but it is quiet, unspoken, built from necessity rather than familiarity. These are not companions chosen for closeness. They are simply those who happen to be near, sharing the same conditions, the same long night. You become aware of the breathing around you, not synchronized, but present. Each person carries their own rhythm, their own pace, yet together they form a low, steady pattern that fills the space between sounds. It is subtle, almost like the movement of wind through distant trees. You listen, and without realizing it, your own breathing begins to match that slower pace. A curious note found in certain personal letters from soldiers suggests that some found unexpected comfort in this shared presence, even among strangers. The simple awareness of others nearby could ease the sense of isolation that often accompanied nightfall in open camps. Not friendship, not closeness in the usual sense, but something quieter. You feel it now, that subtle shift. The cold is still there. The ground remains firm, the air still sharp against your face. But the space no longer feels entirely empty. There is a kind of quiet connection in the closeness, something that steadies the mind even as the body endures discomfort. A faint sound breaks the stillness, fabric brushing against fabric. Another pair of soldiers adjusting their positions, drawing nearer their cloaks, folding together in layers. One of them lets out a quiet breath, almost a sigh, before settling again. No words follow. None are needed. You shift your legs slightly, drawing them closer to your chest. The position feels more compact, more contained, reducing the space where heat can escape. Your arms follow folding inward hands tucked beneath layers of cloth where the warmth is strongest. The posture feels natural now, instinctive. A reflective observation among historians is that many of these sleeping positions mirror those seen in extreme cold survival situations today, where conserving body heat becomes the primary concern. The human body adapts quickly when conditions demand it, often without conscious thought. You close your eyes again, this time longer. The darkness feels less distant now, less like something outside of you, and more like something you can settle into. The sounds of the camp continue, but they have softened further, blending into a steady background that no longer draws your attention. Your awareness narrows, not sharply, but gently. You feel the warmth where your cloak overlaps another, the faint rise and fall of breath nearby, the steady pressure of the ground beneath you. Each sensation becomes part of a single continuous experience. There is no comfort here in the usual sense, but there is balance. A brief gust of wind passes over the camp stronger than before. It brushes across your face, slipping through small gaps in your cloak, reminding you that the night is still active, still changing. You respond without opening your eyes, tucking your chin lower, pressing closer to the shared warmth at your side. The gust fades, and with it the tension it carried. Stillness returns once more. You let your breathing slow further, each inhale deeper than the last, each exhale softer, quieter. The rhythm becomes steady, almost automatic, as if your body has decided to carry you the rest of the way. Sleep does not arrive suddenly. It approaches in fragments, moments where your thoughts drift, where awareness softens, where the cold feels distant for just a second before returning again. You move in and out of that edge, not fully asleep, not fully awake, but closer each time. And as you remain there between sensation and rest, you begin to understand something simple and profound. Warmth here is not something you find. It is something you share. You remain close to the faint warmth at your side, letting your body settle into that shared space without fully thinking about it. The position now feels less like a decision and more like something you have grown into, shaped by the quiet demands of the night. Your breathing continues at a steady pace, and for a moment the cold seems almost distant. Then you shift slightly, and you feel it again. Not just the ground, not just the air, but the weight of what you wear. Your clothing, your gear, the layers that carried you through the day now press against you in new and unfamiliar ways. What once felt protective begins to feel restrictive, especially as your body tries to rest. A widely recognized aspect of medieval warfare is that soldiers often slept in partial or full armor when conditions required readiness. Chainmail, padded gambesons, leather straps, and metal fittings were not easily removed, particularly in freezing temperatures where stiffness made even simple movements more difficult. Readiness and protection often outweighed comfort. You notice it along your shoulders first. A dull pressure, not painful but persistent. The padding beneath your outer layer has shifted slightly, bunching at one side, pressing into your skin. Beneath that, the faint rigidity of armor remains a constant presence that does not adapt easily to the curves of your resting body. You try to adjust, slowly, carefully, pulling at the edge of your garment, easing it into a more comfortable position. The movement helps for a moment, then settles into a different kind of pressure. Not better, just changed. You exhale, quietly, The man beside you shifts as well, perhaps responding to his own discomfort. His cloak moves against yours, the shared warmth shifting slightly as both of you search for positions that feel less strained. For a brief moment, the contact loosens and you feel the cold return more sharply along your side. You move closer again. Instinctively, reclaiming that narrow band of warmth, a small sound escapes from somewhere behind you, metal against metal, soft but distinct. Someone adjusting a piece of armor, perhaps loosening a strap, perhaps shifting the weight away from a pressure point. The sound lingers for just a second before fading into the larger stillness. You become more aware of your own gear, the belt at your waist, the fastening at your chest, each piece designed for movement, for protection, for endurance during the day. None of it intended for rest, none of it shaped for stillness. A lesser-noted detail from surviving records suggests that some soldiers loosened specific pieces of armor at night without removing them entirely. This allowed for a small degree of comfort while maintaining readiness in case of sudden alarm. It was a compromise shaped by both fear and practicality. You consider it. Then slowly you reach down. Your fingers find the edge of a strap, stiff from cold resistant at first. You work it gently, careful not to create noise, easing the tension just slightly. The difference is immediate, though subtle. The pressure across your chest lessens, your breathing feels a fraction easier. You pause, listening. No reaction from those around you. The camp remains quiet. You settle back again, testing the change. The loosened strap allows your body to expand more naturally with each breath, reducing the sense of confinement. It is not a large improvement, but it is enough. A brief moment of stillness follows, then another. Your body begins to adapt once more, adjusting to this new balance between protection and rest. The armor remains, but its presence is less intrusive now, less demanding of your attention. You feel the cold along your legs, stronger there, less protected. The fabric is thinner, the layers fewer, and the ground presses upward with steady persistence. You draw your knees in, slightly reducing the exposed area, allowing your body heat to gather more effectively within the enclosed space. It helps. A little. A curious observation from some chroniclers describes how soldiers sometimes place small objects beneath certain parts of their bodies to reduce direct pressure from armor. A folded cloth, a bundle of straw, even a glove placed strategically could ease discomfort over long hours. These small adjustments rarely transformed the experience, but they made it more bearable. You reach beneath you again. Your fingers find a slightly thicker patch of straw. You gather it carefully, shifting it toward your side, placing it beneath the area where the pressure feels strongest. When you settle back, the difference is noticeable. The edge of discomfort softens, replaced by something closer to neutrality. You let out a slow breath. Not relief, but acceptance. Around you, the camp continues in quiet motion. Small adjustments, subtle shifts. Each person engaged in their own silent effort to find a position that can be held through the long hours ahead. No one speaks. There is no need. You feel the faint rise and fall of the man beside you, his breathing steady, now slower than before. Whether he sleeps or simply rests, you cannot tell. The distinction begins to blur in this environment, where full sleep is rare and rest comes in fragments. A reflective question often raised by scholars is whether soldiers ever grew accustomed to sleeping under such conditions, or whether each night remained a challenge regardless of experience. Some suggest that the body learns to adapt, finding ways to rest even in discomfort. Others argue that true rest remained elusive, replaced instead by brief intervals of partial sleep. You consider this as you lie still. Your body feels heavy, not from comfort, but from fatigue, the kind that settles deep, making movement less appealing, making stillness easier to accept. The cold remains, the ground remains, the weight of your gear remains, yet the urgency to change, to adjust, to resist begins to fade. You close your eyes again. This time the darkness feels thicker, more present. Your awareness narrows further, focusing on fewer sensations, letting others drift away. The pressure of your clothing becomes background. The cold becomes constant rather than intrusive. The sounds of the camp soften into something distant and indistinct. You drift, not fully, but closer. Each breath carries you a little further from the sharpness of the moment, a little deeper into that space where thought slows and sensation blurs. The discomfort does not disappear. It simply becomes less immediate, less defined. You remain there, balanced between wakefulness and rest, between the weight of armor and the pull of sleep. And slowly, without any clear moment of change, you begin to understand how even burden can become part of stillness. You remain in that narrow space between wakefulness and rest, your body held in place by layers of cloth, faint warmth, and quiet necessity. The shared heat at your side lingers, though thinner now, as if it too must be carefully preserved. For a few moments, nothing changes. Then the light shifts. You notice it through your closed eyes, first a soft flicker that comes and goes, uneven and uncertain. When you open them slightly, you see the source. The nearest fire has weakened its glow, no longer steady, its edges dim and shrinking into the dark. The flames struggle. They rise briefly, then fall. A practical reality of medieval encampments is that firewood was rarely abundant, especially on campaign routes that had already been stripped by passing armies. Soldiers often had to ration fuel carefully, using small fires for short periods, rather than maintaining strong flames throughout the night. Warmth, like everything else, was limited. You watch as one soldier leans forward, nudging a piece of wood deeper into the embers. It catches slowly, a brief flare of light pushing outward, illuminating nearby faces in soft orange tones. For a moment the camp feels warmer, more defined. Then the flame settles again, lower, quieter. You can smell it now. Burning wood mixed with damp fibres, a faint sharpness that clings to the air. It is not unpleasant, but it carries a certain dryness, a reminder that what little warmth exists depends entirely on what can be burned. You shift your head slightly, resting it more securely on the bundle beneath you. The position feels stable, though not comfortable, and you allow yourself to remain still. The fire dims further. Its light no longer reaches you fully. Only a faint glow touches the edges of your vision, leaving most of the camp in shadow. Shapes become less distinct, blending into one another as the night deepens. You feel the cold respond. It moves in quietly. Without resistance from the fire, the air settles lower, closer to the ground, filling the space where warmth once lingered. You pull your cloak tighter, drawing it close beneath your chin, sealing what small pocket of heat you can. A brief sound breaks the stillness. Footsteps, soft, measured, someone moving between the fires, likely searching for remaining warmth or checking the embers before they disappear entirely. The steps pass near you, then fade into the darkness beyond. An interesting observation recorded in some medieval chronicles notes that fires were sometimes kept intentionally small during times of uncertainty, especially when armies camped within possible reach of an enemy. A larger fire provided more warmth, but also greater visibility. In certain moments, concealment mattered more than comfort. You consider that. A quiet restraint, the choice to remain cold rather than risk being seen. It adds another layer to the night, another reason why warmth remains so limited. You hear a soft crack, a piece of wood collapsing inward. The remaining embers glow briefly, then settle into a deeper red, their light pulsing gently like a slow heartbeat. The warmth they give off is faint now, barely reaching beyond those closest to them. You feel none of it, only the absence. Your breathing continues at a steady pace, though you notice a slight tightening in your chest as the temperature drops. Not discomfort exactly, but awareness. The kind that reminds you to remain still, to conserve what energy you have. You draw your knees in closer, reducing space, holding warmth. A short pause follows, then stillness returns once more. Another soldier nearby shifts closer to the fading fire, though it offers little in return. He extends his hands toward the embers, waiting as if expecting something to change. After a moment, he lowers them again, accepting what remains. A small, almost quiet resignation. You close your eyes again. The darkness feels deeper now, less shaped by flickering light, more consistent. Without the fire, the night becomes more complete, more enveloping. It surrounds you, fully leaving only sensation and sound. There is less to see, more to feel. You notice the air against your face sharper now, more defined along the edges of your nose and cheeks. You tuck your chin lower, letting the fabric of your cloak shield as much as it can. A reflective point raised by some researchers suggests that the absence of firelight may have influenced how soldiers experienced the night itself. Without steady illumination, the senses adjusted differently, relying more on sound and touch than sight. The darkness became less something to observe and more something to inhabit. You begin to feel that shift. Your awareness moves inward, less focused on the space around you, more on the small area your body occupies. The ground beneath, the cloak above, the warmth beside you, the breath within your chest. Each sensation becomes clearer, simpler, more contained. The camp once visible and defined now exists mostly through sound. A faint rustle here, a soft breath there, occasional movement quickly stilled. The world has narrowed not in size but in perception. You let your breathing deepen again. Slow, even. The rhythm steadies you, creating a pattern that your body can follow without thought. Inhale, exhale, each cycle drawing you slightly further from the sharpness of wakefulness. The cold remains. The ground remains, but the urgency is lessened. The fire may be gone, but something else has taken its place. Not warmth, not light, but a quiet acceptance that allows you to rest within what is. Your body settles further. Your muscles release small amounts of tension. Your thoughts begin to drift. Not fully, but enough. You linger there in that quiet space where the night feels complete, where the absence of fire no longer feels like a loss but simply part of the world as it is. And in that deeper darkness, sleep begins to draw a little closer. You rest within the deeper darkness now, where the absence of firelight has softened the edges of everything around you. Shapes no longer stand apart clearly. The camp exists as a collection of quiet presences rather than visible forms. Your eyes, though closed, no longer search for light. They simply rest. And in that quiet you begin to hear more. Not louder sounds, but finer ones. The night carries them gently, placing each detail within reach of your awareness. A slow breath nearby. The faint shift of fabric against frozen ground. The distant murmur of wind brushing across open land. Each sound arrives clearly, then fades, leaving space for the next. You listen. Without effort. A commonly accepted feature of medieval camps is that nights were rarely silent even when activity had ceased. The presence of hundreds, sometimes thousands of people, ensured a constant background of subtle noise. Breathing movement animals shifting in their restraints, and the quiet maintenance of equipment all contributed to a soundscape that never fully disappeared. You notice the animals now. Faint at first, a low shuffle, the soft clink of harness. Somewhere beyond your immediate space, a horse shifts its weight, releasing a slow breath that hangs briefly in the cold air before dissolving. The sound is calm, steady grounding in a way that feels almost familiar. Closer still, a man clears his throat. Soft. Then stillness again. You feel how the night carries these sounds differently. Without firelight, without movement to draw attention, each small noise seems more defined. Not intrusive, just present. As if the darkness itself gives them space to exist. You remain still, listening. The wind moves again, this time lower, brushing across the ground rather than above it. It slips along the surface, touching the edges of cloaks, stirring loose strands of straw, passing quietly over your face before continuing on. You respond instinctively. A slight shift of your shoulder, a subtle pull of fabric closer to your skin. Then stillness returns. A curious observation noted in some personal accounts is that soldiers often learn to distinguish between ordinary nighttime sounds and those that signaled potential danger. The creak of leather, the rhythm of familiar movement, the steady breathing of nearby companions became part of a known pattern. Anything outside that pattern, even something small, could draw immediate attention. You sense that awareness here, even in rest, even in stillness. There is a kind of listening that does not fully sleep. You feel it in your own body, a quiet readiness that remains beneath the surface of your drifting thoughts. Not tension, not fear, just a thin layer of awareness that stays present even as your breathing slows. A brief sound interrupts the pattern, a sharper shift. You open your eyes slightly, not fully, just enough. Nothing moves in your immediate view, only the faint outline of shapes against darker shapes. The sound does not repeat. It settles back into the broader rhythm of the camp, becoming just another part of the night. You close your eyes again. Your breathing deepens. A reflective idea discussed among scholars suggests that sleep in such environments may have been lighter and more fragmented than what many people experience today. The body aware of potential risk may have remained partially alert, allowing individuals to wake more easily at unfamiliar sounds. You feel that possibility now. You are resting, but not completely surrendered. A soft murmur reaches you from somewhere further away, too quiet to understand more a vibration than a voice. It fades quickly, leaving behind the steady presence of breath and movement. You notice the rhythm again, the slow rise and fall of the man beside you, the occasional shift of someone turning in place, the faint repeated sounds that form a pattern steady enough to become almost comforting. It reminds you of something, not a specific memory, but a feeling, the kind of quiet that exists when many people share the same space, each engaged in their own private moment, yet connected by proximity and circumstance. You let yourself follow that rhythm. Inhale, exhale. The pattern steadies you further, guiding your body toward a deeper state of rest. The cold remains, but it no longer demands constant attention. It has become part of the background, like the distant wind or the soft movements around you. Another small sound reaches you. A piece of equipment shifting, a strap brushing lightly against metal. The sound is brief, contained, then gone. You do not react. Your body remains still, your breathing unchanged. The awareness is there, but does not pull you fully back into wakefulness. It passes through like the wind, like the breath of another, like the quiet movement of the night itself. You feel your thoughts begin to drift, slower now, less defined. The boundary between sound and silence blurs, each one blending into the other. The camp becomes a single continuous presence rather than a collection of separate elements. You remain within it, held by it. A final observation from historians suggests that these nights, though harsh, may have created a unique form of shared experience among soldiers. The absence of comfort, the reliance on small adjustments, the quiet endurance of cold and darkness, all contributed to a sense of collective existence, even among individuals who barely knew one another. You feel a trace of that now, not as a thought, but as a sensation, a quiet understanding that you are part of something larger, even in stillness, even in rest. Your breathing slows further. Your body settles more deeply into the ground beneath you. The sounds continue, soft, steady, unchanging, and as you remain within that gentle rhythm, sleep moves a little closer, still carried not by silence, but by the quiet music of the night itself. You drift a little deeper into that soft rhythm where sound and stillness begin to blend into one continuous presence. Your body feels heavier now, not with comfort, but with a quiet acceptance that allows you to remain where you are. The cold has not disappeared. It has simply become familiar. Then slowly your awareness shifts again, this time toward the layers that surround you. Your clothing. You feel it more clearly now, not just as weight or restriction, but as your primary defense against the night. Every fold, every seam, every worn edge carries a purpose that becomes more obvious in stillness than it ever did during the day. A broadly accepted detail of medieval life is that clothing was designed with durability and layering in mind, especially for those who lived or travelled in harsh conditions. Soldiers often wore multiple layers of wool linen and padded garments, not for luxury, but for survival. Each layer trapped a small amount of air, creating a barrier against the cold. You notice how your garments sit against your skin. The inner layer feels slightly damp, holding the memory of movement from earlier in the day. Above it, a thicker layer rests more loosely, trapping a faint pocket of warmth that shifts as you breathe. Your outer cloak, heavier and coarser, shields against the wind, though not completely. You pull it closer. Carefully, the fabric brushes against your cheek, rough but steady, forming a small shelter around your face. It blocks some of the air, reduces the sharpness of each passing breeze, and allows your breath to linger for just a moment longer before fading. It helps, in a small way. Nearby, a soldier adjusts his sleeve, tugging it down over his hand, hiding his fingers within the fabric. Another does the same, pulling his cloak forward to cover his face almost entirely, leaving only a narrow space for breathing. You follow, drawing your own sleeve slightly over your hand, tucking your fingers inward where warmth can gather. The sensation is immediate, a faint return of heat that had been slipping away unnoticed. A curious note from surviving accounts suggests that some soldiers developed habits of sleeping, with their hands tucked into their clothing, not only for warmth, but also to maintain dexterity by morning. Cold fingers could stiffen quickly, making even simple tasks difficult when the day began. You flex your fingers slightly, slowly, testing the warmth that returns. It is not strong, but it is enough. The fabric around you carries a scent faint but constant. Wool smoke, damp earth, and something older, something that has settled into the fibres over time. It is not unpleasant. It is simply part of the environment, something that becomes familiar the longer you remain within it. You breathe it in, then out. Your breathing remains steady, though now it feels more contained, the fabric around your face, creating a small pocket where warmth gathers and lingers. Each exhale warms the air slightly, each inhale draws it back and softens just enough to make a difference. You shift your shoulders. Gently, the layers move with you, adjusting, settling into new positions that feel slightly more aligned with your body. Not perfect, but closer. A reflective observation sometimes discussed by researchers is that clothing in this period was often repaired repeatedly, resulting in garments that were uneven in thickness and texture. Some areas provided better insulation than others, depending on how often they had been patched or reinforced. You feel that now. One side of your cloak feels thicker, heavier, more protective. The other feels thinner, more exposed. You turn slightly, aligning the thicker section with the direction of the wind, creating a more effective barrier without fully thinking about it. The adjustment feels natural, instinctive. A brief sound reaches you. Fabric shifting, someone nearby turning over their cloak, dragging softly across the ground before settling again. The movement is slow, careful, as if done with the understanding that sudden motion invites cold to rush in. You remain still, letting your own warmth stabilize. The ground beneath you is still firm, still cold, but the layers between you and it now feel more intentional, more structured. The straw, the cloak, the clothing, all working together in small ways to reduce the constant drain of heat. You become aware of your feet, cooler than the rest of your body. The layers there are thinner, the protection less complete. You move them slightly closer to your center, tucking them nearer to your legs, reducing exposure. It helps, again only a little, but each small improvement builds upon the last. A thoughtful note from some historians suggests that the effectiveness of clothing in such conditions depended less on its quality and more on how it was used. The way it was layered, adjusted, and maintained could make a significant difference in how well it protected against the cold. You understand that now, not as theory, but as experience. Your body continues to adapt, finding ways to conserve warmth, to reduce loss, to remain within the narrow range where rest is possible. Each adjustment becomes part of a quiet system, one that does not eliminate discomfort but manages it. You close your eyes again. The darkness feels softer now, less distant, more connected to the sensations around you. The sounds of the camp remain, but they are quieter, less distinct, blending into a steady background that no longer draws your focus. Your breathing deepens. Slow, even. The layers around you hold their position, the warmth they trap remaining close, not escaping as quickly as before. It is not enough to make you warm, but it is enough to slow the cold, to keep it from advancing too quickly. You drift again. Further this time, your thoughts become less defined, your awareness narrowing to a few simple sensations: the weight of your clothing, the faint warmth within, the steady rhythm of breath. Everything else begins to fade. You remain there, balanced, held between cold and warmth, between awareness and rest. And within those carefully arranged layers, sleep edges closer still, not through comfort, but through quiet persistence. You remain wrapped within your layers, your body settled into a rhythm that feels steady enough to hold for a while. The cold continues its quiet work, but your adjustments have slowed its reach. For a brief stretch, nothing demands your attention. Then something shifts again, not within you, but around you. A faint rustle moves across the camp, subtle at first, like wind catching loose fabric. You open your eyes slightly and notice a change in the shapes nearby. Some figures are no longer lying flat. They have risen just enough to adjust their coverings, their positions, their small shelters against the night. You follow their movement with quiet curiosity. A widely accepted aspect of medieval military life is that not all soldiers slept fully exposed to the open air. When materials allowed, even the simplest shelters were created, offering a modest barrier against wind and frost. These were not strong structures, not permanent but temporary solutions shaped by whatever could be gathered. You look to your left. There, a low form stands just above the ground, barely visible in the dim light. A cloak has been stretched between two upright objects, perhaps spears or sticks, forming a narrow cover. Beneath it, a soldier lies curled inward, his body shielded from direct exposure. It is not much, but it changes something. The wind passes over rather than through. The space beneath appears darker, more contained. You consider it, then glance around. There are others, some more elaborate, some barely noticeable. A cloak draped over a shield, a bundle of fabric arranged to block the direction of the breeze, even a simple leaning shape just enough to interrupt the flow of air. Each one an attempt, each one imperfect. A curious detail from certain medieval sources suggests that soldiers sometimes use their equipment creatively to form temporary windbreaks. Shields, spears, and even packs could be arranged in small configurations that reduced exposure, particularly during long nights in open terrain. You feel the wind again. It brushes across your face, less sharp than before, but still present. You turn your head slightly, testing how it moves around you. There is no barrier here, no structure to redirect it. Only your cloak, only your body. You shift, carefully, drawing your cloak upward, lifting one edge slightly and angling it toward the direction of the breeze. It is a small adjustment, one that requires holding the fabric in place with your arm, but it creates a narrow pocket where the air moves differently. Slower, softer. You settle into that position. Your arm begins to tire after a moment, but you adjust again, tucking the edge of the cloak beneath your side to hold it in place. The makeshift barrier remains fragile but effective enough to notice. It helps, not dramatically, but enough to matter. Nearby, a soldier shifts beneath his small covering, adjusting it to follow the movement of the wind. The structure bends slightly, then settles again. It does not block everything, but it reduces the constant pressure of air against his body. You watch for a moment, then close your eyes again. A reflective observation among researchers is that these small shelters often provided more psychological comfort than physical warmth. The sense of enclosure, however slight, could make the night feel less exposed, less endless. Even a minimal barrier could change how a person experienced the cold. You begin to understand that. The space around you feels different now. Not warmer, but more contained. Your awareness of the wind lessens, replaced by a steadier sense of stillness within your immediate surroundings. The cloak above and around you creates a boundary, however thin, that separates you from the open field beyond. You breathe slowly. In, out. The rhythm steadies again. A faint sound reaches you from further away. Fabric snapping lightly in the breeze, perhaps from a larger covering, perhaps from a tent belonging to someone of higher rank. The sound is brief, then fades, leaving behind the familiar quiet. You imagine those larger shelters, more structured, more secure. yet still subject to the same cold, the same night, the same limitations of material and time. No one here escapes entirely. Some simply endure with slightly better conditions. A question sometimes raised by historians concerns how widespread these small shelters were among ordinary soldiers. Some accounts suggest they were common whenever materials allowed, while others imply that many simply lay exposed due to lack of resources or time. The variation likely depended on circumstance, terrain, and preparation. You feel that uncertainty here. Some have cover, others do not. You remain where you are with what you have. Your body continues to adapt, settling into the position that best holds the fragile balance you've created. The ground beneath you feels unchanged, but the air above has softened, slightly, redirected by your small adjustments. You tuck your chin lower, draw your knees closer, hold your position. A short pause follows, then stillness returns. Your thoughts drift again, slower, now less defined. The presence of the camp fades into the background, replaced by a quieter focus on the small space you occupy. The cloak, the ground, the faint warmth within. You feel your breathing deepen once more. Your body grows heavier, not with comfort, but with the gradual pull of rest. The small shelter you have formed does not protect you fully. It does not keep the cold away, but it changes the way you experience it, softening its edges, reducing its reach, allowing your body to remain just within the limits where sleep can approach. And as you remain within that narrow, carefully shaped space, you begin to drift again, carried not by warmth, but by the quiet stability you've created around yourself. You remain within your small shelter of cloth and stillness, your body now quiet enough that each breath feels like part of a steady pattern, rather than a deliberate effort. The cold persists, but your awareness of it has softened, settling into the background, like a constant presence that no longer demands your full attention. Then slowly another sensation rises, hunger, not sharp, not urgent, but there. It lingers in your stomach as a hollow awareness, something you had set aside earlier while arranging your place for the night. Now in stillness, it returns gentle but persistent, reminding you of what came before this moment. A broadly acknowledged feature of life on campaign is that food was often simple, limited, and inconsistent. Soldiers rarely enjoyed large warm meals at the end of the day, especially in difficult conditions. Rations might include coarse bread, salted meat, or whatever could be gathered or carried, and these meals were often eaten quickly, without ceremony. You think back to it. The taste, plain, heavy, the bread dry against your tongue, the meat tough, requiring effort to chew. Not satisfying in the way a full meal might be, but enough to quiet the body for a time. You shift slightly. The movement brings a faint warmth to your core, subtle but noticeable. Even now, hours later, the small amount of food you consumed continues to play its role, fueling the quiet work your body must do to endure the cold. Nearby, a soldier turns onto his side, a soft sound escaping him, something between a breath and a murmur. Perhaps he feels it too. That low, steady hunger that does not disappear entirely even after eating. You pull your cloak closer. The fabric presses lightly against your stomach, holding in what little warmth remains. It is not enough to ease the sensation, but it reduces its sharpness, blending it into the larger experience of the night. A lesser discussed detail from certain historical writings notes that eating before sleep could slightly improve a soldier's ability to withstand cold conditions. The body fueled even by a modest meal generated more heat during rest than it would otherwise. It was not a solution, but it made a difference. You notice that now, subtle, but real. The warmth within your chest and stomach feels slightly stronger than the cold at your extremities. Your hands and feet remain cool, but your center holds a faint steadiness that supports your breathing, your stillness. You inhale slowly. The air enters cool, then softens slightly as it moves deeper. You exhale. The warmth lingers for just a moment beneath your cloak before fading. A quiet rustle comes from somewhere behind you. You open your eyes slightly. In the dimness, you see a figure sitting up, hunched forward, bringing something to his mouth. The motion is slow, careful, as if conserving energy. Perhaps he saved a small portion of food. Perhaps he simply could not ignore the hunger any longer. The act is brief, then he lies back down again. A small moment, but telling. You close your eyes once more. Your body remains still conserving what it has. Movement, even slight, invites cold to return more quickly. You feel the balance now, the need to remain steady to allow the warmth within to last as long as possible. A reflective point sometimes raised by researchers is that hunger and cold often work together in shaping a soldier's experience of the night. One intensified the other. An empty body lost heat more quickly, while a cold body burned energy faster, creating a quiet cycle that was difficult to escape. You feel the edges of that cycle, not strongly, but enough to notice. You draw your knees in, slightly reducing the space within your cloak, allowing the warmth from your core to spread more effectively. The position feels tighter, more contained, but it helps maintain that fragile balance. Your breathing remains slow. Even, a faint scent drifts through the air. Cooked meat, smoke, lingering from earlier, now faint but still present. It mixes with the smell of wool and earth, forming a quiet reminder of the day's final activity before darkness settled. You let your awareness rest on that scent for a moment, then release it. The night continues, unchanging. A distant sound reaches you softer than before. Perhaps a horse shifting again, perhaps a piece of equipment settling into place. It does not draw your attention for long. It passes through your awareness and fades. You feel your body growing heavier, not with comfort, but with the gradual pull of rest. The hunger remains, but it no longer feels separate from the rest of your experience. It becomes part of the whole, another quiet sensation woven into the fabric of the night. You allow it. Without resistance, your thoughts slow, further becoming less distinct, more like impressions than ideas. The memory of food, the sensation of warmth, the awareness of cold all blending together into something simpler. Your breathing deepens. Your body settles. The small warmth within you holds steady, supported by stillness, by careful positioning, by the quiet energy that remains from what little you consumed. And as you remain within that delicate balance, neither full nor empty, neither warm nor entirely cold, you drift a little closer to sleep, carried by the slow, steady rhythm of a body doing its best to endure the night. You remain wrapped within your small circle of warmth, your breathing slow, and even your body held in a careful balance between stillness and quiet awareness. The hunger has softened into the background. The cold has become familiar, and for a brief stretch of time, nothing presses strongly enough to pull you fully awake. Then something else rises, not from outside, from within, a heaviness. It spreads through your limbs, settling into your shoulders, your legs, your back. Not discomfort, not exactly. Something deeper. A quiet weight that draws you downward, urging you to remain still, to release effort, to let go. Fatigue. It has been there all along. You feel it more clearly now. A well-established understanding of medieval campaigns is that soldiers often marched long distances before even reaching the battlefield. Hours of walking, carrying equipment, managing animals, and preparing for conflict left the body deeply tired. By nightfall, exhaustion could outweigh many forms of discomfort. You sense that truth in your own body. The need for rest grows stronger than the desire for comfort. You shift slightly, not to improve your position, but simply to respond to that weight. Your muscles relax a little more, releasing tension you had not noticed holding. Your shoulders drop, your arms settle close to your body. Your legs find a position that requires less effort to maintain. It feels different now, not better, but easier. A soft sound escapes you. Barely audible, a breath that carries a hint of release. Nearby, the man beside you remains still, his breathing slow and steady. Whether he sleeps or rests, you cannot tell, but his stillness adds to the sense that the camp has moved into a deeper phase of the night. Less movement, fewer adjustments, more surrender. A curious detail noted in some historical observations is that extreme tiredness could allow individuals to fall asleep, even in harsh conditions, sometimes within moments of lying down. The body pushed beyond its usual limits would seize any opportunity for rest regardless of discomfort. You begin to feel that. Your awareness softens. The sharp edges of sensation blur slightly, no longer demanding constant attention. The cold remains, but it no longer feels urgent. The ground remains, but it no longer feels intrusive. Everything becomes quieter. Even within you, a faint sound reaches your ears, a distant cough. Then silence again. It barely registers. Your focus is narrowed, drawn inward by the steady pull of fatigue. Thoughts come more slowly now, forming only briefly before dissolving. You no longer follow them. You let them pass. Your breathing deepens. In, out. The rhythm steadies you further, creating a gentle pattern that your body follows without effort. Each breath feels heavier, more complete, as if it carries you slightly further away from wakefulness. You feel your head sink more firmly into the bundle beneath it. The position holds, stable. Your body accepts it. A reflective idea sometimes discussed by historians is that sleep in such environments may not have been continuous, but rather broken into short intervals shaped by exhaustion. Even brief moments of rest could restore enough energy to continue through the next day. You sense that possibility now, not as a plan, but as a quiet unfolding. Your body does not seek perfect sleep. It seeks enough to continue. A slight movement occurs nearby, someone turning over, the sound of fabric brushing against the ground, then settling again. It does not disturb you fully. It passes through your awareness like a distant ripple fading quickly. You remain still. Your muscles loosen further, releasing more tension with each passing moment. The weight of your clothing, your gear, your surroundings all blend into a single, consistent pressure that no longer feels separate. It simply is. You feel your hands tucked within your clothing, growing warmer than before. Not warm in the usual sense, but less cold, less exposed. The small pocket of heat remains held close by your stillness. Your feet remain cool, but you no longer adjust them. The effort feels unnecessary. The fatigue is stronger now. A thoughtful observation from certain researchers suggests that when exhaustion reaches a certain point, the body prioritizes rest over discomfort, allowing sleep to begin, even when conditions are far from ideal. You understand that now. Your body is choosing stillness, choosing rest. Without asking for permission, your breathing slows further. Your awareness fades. Not completely, but enough. The sounds of the camp grow distant, blending into a low, continuous presence that no longer draws your attention. The cold, the ground, the weight all remain, but they no longer feel separate from you. They become part of the same experience. Unified. Simple. You drift. Closer. The boundary between waking and sleeping softens, becoming less defined, more fluid. Moments stretch, then dissolve. Sensations fade, then return, then fade again. You no longer resist, you allow it. The fatigue carries you gently, steadily into that quiet space, where the body rests not because it is comfortable, but because it must. And in that surrender, sleep finally begins to take hold, not fully, not deeply, but enough to carry you through the coldest part of the night. You drift within that shallow layer of sleep where rest feels close yet never fully secure. Your body has softened your breathing, steady your limbs heavy enough to remain still. For a while the cold fades into something distant, something that no longer demands your attention. Then images begin to form, not clear ones, not steady. They arrive in fragments shaped by memory and sensation, blending the present with something softer and far away. You do not choose them. They come quietly like the night itself. You find yourself walking, not here, somewhere warmer. The ground beneath your feet feels different, less rigid, less unyielding. There is light, though you cannot see its source. It spreads gently, without sharpness, without cold. You move through it without effort. Then it shifts. The warmth fades slightly. The ground changes. You feel it again, that familiar hardness pressing upward, reminding you of where you are. The dream bends, reshapes itself around the reality of your body, unable to fully separate from it. A widely accepted observation among researchers is that sleep in harsh environments often produces fragmented dreams, influenced by immediate physical conditions. Sensations such as cold, discomfort, or sound can weave themselves into the dreaming mind, altering its course without fully waking the sleeper. You feel that happening now. The warmth returns, briefly, then slips away again. You turn slightly within the dream, though your body remains still. The movement feels real yet distant, as if happening in a place that overlaps with your present, but does not fully belong to it. A sound enters, soft, a faint rustle. It blends into the dream, at first becoming something else, perhaps the movement of leaves, perhaps the shifting of cloth in a place that is not this camp. But slowly it sharpens, separates, and your awareness begins to rise again. Your eyes open halfway. The darkness returns. The cold returns. You are here. You do not move. Not yet. Your breathing remains steady, though slightly quicker than before. The transition from dream to waking feels incomplete, as if part of you remains behind, lingering in that softer space. You close your eyes again, letting yourself drift back. A curious detail from some personal accounts suggests that soldiers sometimes experienced repeated cycles of shallow sleep throughout the night, waking briefly before slipping back into dreams that felt fragmented and unfinished. Rest came in pieces, never fully continuous. You settle into that pattern now. The dream returns, different this time, less defined, more abstract. You feel warmth again, but it does not hold. It flickers like the fire that once burned nearby, rising and fading without warning. You reach for it, not with your hands, but with your awareness trying to remain within it. It slips away. You shift slightly. In the real world this time, your shoulder presses more firmly against the man beside you, the shared warmth returning faintly. The contact anchors you, grounding your body even as your mind drifts. You breathe out slowly, then in. The rhythm steadies again. A reflective idea discussed among scholars is that dreams during periods of stress or discomfort may serve as a kind of release, allowing the mind to process experiences even when the body cannot fully rest. Whether this brought comfort or confusion is uncertain, but the experience itself appears to have been common. You feel both, a trace of comfort in the warmth that appears within your mind, and a trace of confusion when it fades. The night continues around you, unchanged. A faint sound reaches you again, a horse shifting, the quiet creak of leather. It enters your awareness more clearly this time, pulling you slightly closer to waking, though not fully. You remain balanced between the two states, aware of both, yet fully within neither. Your body remains still. Your breathing slow. The cold presses lightly against your face, though it feels distant, softened by the layers around you and the heaviness of your rest. You drift again. The dream returns in fragments. A flicker of light, a sense of movement, then darkness, then stillness. It does not form a clear story. It does not need to. It simply exists, shaped by what you feel, what you remember, what your body experiences in this moment. You allow it, without resistance, without expectation. Your awareness fades once more, slipping gently into that quiet space where thought dissolves and sensation softens. The boundary between waking and sleeping becomes less defined, more fluid, shifting with each breath. You remain there, balanced, held within the slow rhythm of your body, the steady presence of the night, and the quiet movement of dreams that come and go without warning. And as you drift between these states, you begin to understand that rest here is not a single continuous thing, but a series of small passages, each one carrying you a little further from the cold, if only for a moment. You hover between sleep and awareness, drifting in and out of shallow rest as the night continues its slow passage. Your body has grown used to stillness, your breathing steady, your thoughts softened into quiet fragments that rise and fall without effort. Then something changes, not sharply, but enough. A sound reaches you clearer than before. Footsteps, slow, measured. They move across the camp with intention, not wandering, not uncertain. You open your eyes slightly, the darkness still deep, but now holding a subtle sense of motion. Someone is awake. More than one. You remain still, your body reluctant to move your mind, adjusting slowly. as it returns from the edge of sleep. The cold brushes your face again sharper, now that your awareness has risen, but you do not respond immediately. You listen. A familiar pattern begins to form, voices low and controlled. A quiet exchange that does not disturb the larger stillness yet carries a certain purpose. Not conversation, not rest. Something else. Duty. A well-documented aspect of medieval encampments is that soldiers were often assigned rotating watch shifts throughout the night. Even in freezing conditions, some remained awake, tasked with guarding the camp against surprise-keeping awareness where others could not. You sense it now. The difference between those who sleep and those who remain alert. A figure passes not far from you, his steps careful, his presence steady. You cannot see his face clearly, only the outline of movement against the darker background. He pauses briefly, scanning the quiet forms around him, then continues. The sound fades, then returns again further away. You close your eyes halfway, not fully. Part of you remains aware. A curious note from certain historical records suggests that guard duty in cold conditions was particularly demanding, not only because of the need for vigilance, but because standing still in freezing air could drain warmth more quickly than lying down. Movement helped, but it could not fully counter the loss. You imagine it, standing where the wind moves freely, remaining alert, while others rest. You feel a brief sense of contrast. You are cold here, but still, they are cold and moving. A soft call echoes faintly in the distance, not loud, not urgent, but clear enough to signal presence. It is answered by another voice equally restrained. A pattern, a system ensuring that the night is watched, that nothing moves unnoticed. You listen to it. Exchange feels rhythmic, almost part of the environment itself. It repeats at intervals, never loud enough to disturb, yet consistent enough to reassure. You shift slightly. The movement small, controlled just enough to ease a pressure that has returned along your side. Your cloak moves with you, the fabric brushing softly against the ground before settling again. The warmth at your side remains, faint but steady. A reflective thought discussed among historians is that interrupted sleep may have been common in such settings, not only due to discomfort but because of these necessary routines. The presence of watch rotations, quiet signals, and periodic movement would have shaped how rest was experienced, breaking it into smaller, uneven intervals. You feel that now. Your rest is not continuous. It comes and goes. You drift, then return. Again. And again. A nearby soldier stirs his breathing, shifting briefly before settling once more. Perhaps the sound of movement reached him too. Perhaps he wakes just enough to register it, then lets it pass. You remain where you are. Your body heavy, your awareness balanced between states. The footsteps return closer this time. You sense the presence of the guard again, moving through the narrow spaces between resting figures. His pace remains steady, unhurried, as if guided by a routine repeated many times before. He stops. Not far from you. You do not open your eyes fully, but you feel the pause. The stillness of someone standing, listening, watching. The air itself seems to hold its breath for a moment. Then he moves on. The sound fades. The rhythm of the camp returns. You exhale slowly. Your breathing steadies again. The brief rise in awareness begins to soften your thoughts, slowing once more as the need for rest reasserts itself. The cold remains, but it no longer feels sharp. It settles back into that familiar background, something constant, something expected. A quiet observation from researchers suggests that the presence of guards, even when not directly seen, may have contributed to a subtle sense of security among soldiers. The knowledge that someone remained awake watching could ease the mind just enough to allow rest even in uncertain conditions. You feel the trace of that now, not as a thought, but as a sensation, a slight easing, a quiet permission to drift again. Your eyes close fully. This time you allow it. The sounds of the camp continue, the footsteps more distant now, the voices fading into the background. The pattern remains, but it no longer draws your focus. You sink back into that shallow rest, carried by fatigue, supported by stillness, guided by the steady rhythm of your breath. And as the watch continues around you, unseen but present, your body finds its way back into sleep once more, not deep, not uninterrupted, but enough to carry you through another portion of the long cold night. You drift again into that fragile rest, your body heavy, your breathing slow, your awareness dim to a soft edge. The sounds of footsteps and distant voices have faded, leaving behind the quieter rhythm of the camp. For a while, everything feels steady. Then a different feeling begins to rise. Not a sound, not a movement, something less defined. A tension. It settles into the air, first almost too subtle to notice. A faint tightening, like the pause before a shift in weather. You feel it without fully understanding it, a quiet alertness that moves through your body even as you remain still. You open your eyes slightly. The darkness remains unchanged, yet something feels different. A well-understood reality of life on campaign is that uncertainty never fully disappears even in moments of rest. The possibility of sudden movement, of unexpected approach, of night disturbances, lingered constantly in the minds of soldiers, shaping how they experienced even the quietest hours. You feel that now, not as fear, but as awareness. A small sound reaches you, sharper than before. You listen closely. It does not repeat immediately, but it lingers in your mind, drawing your attention outward. Your body remains still, but your senses sharpen slightly, as if responding to something just beyond reach. Nearby, the man beside you shifts. Slowly, his breathing changes for a moment, then steadies again. Perhaps he senses it too. Perhaps not. The difference is difficult to tell in the darkness. You remain still, listening. A faint breeze moves across the camp, carrying with it a slight change in scent. Less smoke now, more earth, more open air. The absence of fire has made the night feel wider, less contained. Your heartbeat becomes more noticeable. Not faster, just clearer. A curious observation found in certain historical reflections is that even in the absence of immediate danger, soldiers often remained lightly alert during the night, their senses tuned to subtle changes in their environment. This heightened awareness could persist even during rest, creating a state that was neither fully relaxed nor fully tense. You recognize that state now. You are resting, but not fully at ease. A distant sound reaches you again, this time softer, more drawn out. Perhaps the wind moving across uneven ground. Perhaps something else. It is difficult to tell, and that uncertainty holds your attention for a moment longer. You consider opening your eyes fully, looking, but you do not. Instead, you remain still, allowing your senses to gather what they can without movement. The cold brushes your face, the ground holds your weight. The faint warmth beside you remains steady. Nothing changes. The sound fades. The tension softens. A slow breath leaves your body. You had not realized you were holding it. The awareness begins to settle again, not disappearing, but easing into the background where it no longer demands focus. The camp returns to its quiet rhythm, the same subtle pattern of breath and occasional movement. A reflective idea sometimes explored by historians is that this constant presence of uncertainty may have shaped how soldiers experienced rest, preventing deep relaxation and reinforcing a cycle of light fragmented sleep. You feel that pattern, the brief rise, the slow release. Again and again, a soldier somewhere further away turns over the sound of his movement, travelling softly across the ground. Another shifts slightly, adjusting his position before becoming still once more. The night continues, unchanged. Your body begins to settle again, the earlier tension fading into a quieter awareness that no longer interrupts your breathing. The rhythm returns slow and even, guiding you back toward rest. You draw your knees in, slightly reinforcing the position that has held your warmth. Your cloak remains in place, your shelter unchanged, your small balance preserved. You close your eyes fully, this time more willingly. The darkness feels deeper now, less interrupted by passing thoughts or shifting awareness. Your mind begins to quiet once more, letting go of the brief alertness that rose without clear cause. A gentle stillness spreads through you. Your muscles loosen again. Your breathing deepens. The cold remains, but it no longer feels sharp. It settles into that familiar presence, something your body has accepted, something that no longer pulls you away from rest. You drift. Not suddenly, but gradually. The memory of that brief tension fades, replaced by the steady rhythm of the night. The sounds around you soften, blending into a continuous background that no longer stand apart. You remain within it, held, carried. A final thought lingers briefly, then dissolves, leaving only sensation and breath. The uncertainty that rose has passed, leaving behind the same quiet endurance that defines the night. And as your awareness fades once more, you return to that shallow sleep, guided not by comfort, but by the quiet understanding that rest must be taken whenever it is offered, even in a world where stillness is never entirely complete. You drift once more into that thin layer of rest, your body held in place by habit, by fatigue, by the quiet patterns you have learned without thinking. The night feels long yet strangely steady, as if time itself has slowed to match the pace of your breathing. Then gradually something shifts again. This time it is the air. You feel it first against your face, a faint change in texture, a subtle difference in how it moves across your skin. The cold deepens not sharply, but with a quiet persistence that draws your attention back outward. You inhale slowly. The air feels drier now, colder. It settles differently in your chest, leaving a sharper edge with each breath. You do not move at first, allowing the sensation to become clearer, to reveal itself fully. A commonly recognized feature of medieval winters is their unpredictability, especially in open landscapes where weather could shift quickly after nightfall. A calm evening could give way to stronger winds, heavier frost, or sudden snowfall, often without warning. You sense that possibility now. The wind rises slightly, not strong, but more constant. It no longer passes in occasional gusts. It remains brushing steadily across the camp, finding small openings in cloaks and garments, slipping through the edges of every makeshift shelter. You respond instinctively. Your chin lowers further into your cloak, your shoulders curl inward, your arms tighten slightly against your body. The posture returns more compact, more protective as your body adjusts to the new conditions. It feels colder, no doubt now. Nearby you hear movement again, more than before. Several soldiers shift at once, reacting to the same change. Cloaks rustle, fabric tightens. Bodies turn to face away from the wind, seeking positions that offer even the smallest advantage. You remain still for a moment longer, then adjust, slowly, turning your back more directly toward the direction of the breeze, allowing your cloak to take the force rather than your face. The fabric presses lightly against your back, the movement of air more noticeable there but less intrusive. It helps. A little. A lesser-known detail from some historical accounts suggests that frost could form rapidly during the night, especially when temperatures drop further after midnight. Moisture in the air or even from breath could settle onto clothing, stiffening fabric and increasing discomfort. You notice it now, a faint stiffness along the edge of your cloak where it touches your cheek. The fabric feels slightly firmer than before, less flexible, as if it has begun to hold the cold within its fibres. You shift your face slightly, seeking a softer fold, finding it. For now, the wind continues, steady, unyielding. A soft sound reaches you from somewhere nearby, a quiet exhale longer than usual, carrying a hint of strain. Someone adjusting again, perhaps struggling to find a position that holds against the deepening cold. You understand the effort. Each movement now requires more care, more intention, as the cold resists change, settling quickly into any space left unguarded. A reflective observation among historians is that sudden drops in temperature during the night could have a significant impact on a soldier's ability to rest, even after initial adjustments had been made. The body already conserving heat had to respond again, tightening its defences often, interrupting what little sleep had begun. You feel that interruption now. Not fully awake, but no longer drifting. Your awareness sharpens slightly, your senses adjusting to the new conditions. The balance you had found earlier shifts, requiring small corrections, small efforts to maintain. You draw your knees closer, tighter, reducing space further. Your hands remain tucked within your clothing, holding on to the faint warmth that still lingers. Your feet, cooler than before, press against your legs, seeking what little heat can be shared. The position becomes more compact, more contained. You hold it. A brief pause follows. Then stillness. The wind does not stop, but it settles into a steady pattern, something your body can begin to anticipate rather than react to. Each breath of air follows the last, predictable, consistent, allowing your awareness to soften once more. You close your eyes again. Your breathing steadies. The cold remains stronger than before, but your adjustments have held. The cloak shields your back, your face remains covered. Your body stays contained within its small space. It is enough, not to be warm, but to endure. A faint sound reaches you again, distant, almost lost in the wind. Perhaps a piece of fabric shifting more forcefully, perhaps a loose object responding to the movement of air. It does not linger, it passes quickly, carried away. Your focus narrows once more. The sensations become fewer, simpler. The cold, the pressure, the rhythm of breath. Everything else fades. Your body begins to settle again, slowly releasing the tension that rose with the change in weather. The adjustments you have made hold, allowing you to return gradually to that fragile edge of rest. You drift again, not as easily as before, but still. The wind continues, the night deepens, and within that shifting air you remain holding your position, allowing sleep to approach once more, even as the cold reminds you that nothing here remains unchanged for long. You remain curled against the steady push of the wind, your body shaped by the night into something smaller, more contained. The position you hold now feels almost fixed, as if any movement might undo the balance you have carefully built. For a while nothing changes. Then you begin to notice something quieter. Not the cold, not the wind, but the differences around you. You open your eyes slightly, just enough to let the dim outlines return. The camp remains mostly still, yet small variations begin to reveal themselves as your awareness sharpens again. Some figures lie close together as you do their cloaks, overlapping, their forms low and compact. Others lie more apart, their shapes less contained, more exposed to the open air. And further still, barely visible, there are structures that stand a little higher, more defined against the darkness. Tents, not many, but enough. A widely recognized aspect of medieval armies is that conditions varied greatly depending on rank, role and resources. Knights officers and those with greater means often had access to better shelter, thicker bedding, and more reliable supplies, while common soldiers made do with whatever was available. You see that difference now, not clearly, but enough to understand it. The tents stand as darker shapes against the sky, their outlines steady, their surfaces catching less of the wind. Beneath them you imagine a space slightly more protected, perhaps with thicker coverings, perhaps with less direct exposure to the frozen ground. You do not envy it exactly, but you notice. Nearby a soldier shifts again, pulling his cloak tighter around himself, his form nearly indistinguishable from the ground beneath him. His position mirrors your own, shaped by the same conditions, the same need to conserve warmth. You feel the shared experience there. Yet beyond that, the contrast remains. A lesser discussed detail in some historical writings notes that even among lower ranks, small differences in equipment could influence how well a soldier endured the night. A thicker cloak, a better pair of boots, an extra layer of fabric, each could shift the experience slightly, though rarely enough to remove the hardship entirely. You think of your own layers. Worn, functional, enough. You adjust your shoulder slightly, feeling the fabric press more firmly against your side. The warmth there remains faint but steady, held within the small space you've created. A soft sound reaches you. Fabric moving against wood. You glance again. One of the tents shifts slightly in the wind, its surface tightening then relaxing as the air passes. The structure holds, but the movement reveals its presence more clearly. Inside you imagine stillness, perhaps deeper rest, though not free from cold. A reflective observation often raised by historians is that while higher rank provided better conditions, it did not eliminate the challenges of winter campaigning. Cold air, damp ground, and limited resources affected, although in varying degrees. You feel that truth now. The difference exists, but the night remains shared. The wind continues to pass across the entire camp, touching every surface, moving through every gap, reminding each person of its presence. You close your eyes again. The image fades, returning you to your own small space. Your breathing steadies once more, the rhythm familiar grounding you as your awareness softens. The thoughts of difference drift away, replaced by the more immediate sensations of your own body, your own position, the ground beneath you, the cloak around you, the faint warmth beside you. A brief movement occurs nearby. Someone sitting up. You hear the shift of fabric, the slight strain of movement against stiffness, then a pause. Perhaps he adjusts something. Perhaps he simply cannot remain still any longer. After a moment he lowers himself again. The sound fades. The camp returns to quiet. You remain still. Your body no longer seeks improvement. It seeks only to hold what it has, to maintain the fragile balance that allows rest to continue. A thoughtful question explored by some scholars considers whether awareness of these differences affected morale during such nights. Did those with less feel the contrast more sharply, or did the shared hardship overshadow the variations? The answer is uncertain, shaped by individual experience and perspective. You let the question pass. It does not change your position. It does not change the cold. Your body settles further, your muscles releasing small amounts of tension that had returned with your brief awareness. The wind continues, but your cloak holds its position. Your posture remains compact, your warmth contained as best as possible. You breathe slowly. In, out. The rhythm carries you again, back toward that quiet edge. The camp fades into the background once more, the shapes, the differences, the distant tents all dissolving into the same soft darkness. What remains is simple, immediate and steady. You feel the weight of your body against the ground, the faint warmth at your side, the steady pattern of breath. Everything else recedes, and as your awareness narrows once more, the differences you notice become less important, less defined, replaced by the shared experience that binds the entire camp in this moment. The long night, the steady cold, and the quiet effort to rest within it. You settle again into that quiet rhythm, your body heavy, your breath slow, your thoughts softened into something barely formed. The wind continues its steady passage, but it no longer draws your attention in the same way. You've adjusted. You remain. For a time the night feels unchanged. Then, from somewhere close by, a different kind of sound reaches you. Not movement, not wind, a voice. Low, soft. You do not open your eyes fully, but your awareness sharpens just enough to follow it. The words are quiet, almost whispered, shaped more by breath than by sound. You cannot make out every phrase, but the pattern is clear. Someone is speaking to something unseen. You listen. The voice continues steady and measured, rising and falling in a gentle rhythm that feels separate from the rest of the camp. It does not carry far. It is meant for the speaker alone, or perhaps for something beyond. A widely understood aspect of medieval life is that faith and ritual played an important role in daily experience, especially in uncertain conditions. Soldiers often carried their beliefs with them into camp, using prayer or quiet reflection as a way to find steadiness before rest. You hear that steadiness now. The voice pauses, then resumes. Each phrase slow, deliberate, as if carefully placed within the cold air. There is no urgency in it, no fear, only repetition, familiar and practiced. Nearby another sound joins it, even softer, another voice. Then silence again. You remain still listening. The sound does not disturb the night. It blends into it, becoming part of the larger rhythm that surrounds you. It feels almost like breathing, something that rises and falls without drawing attention. A curious note found in certain historical records suggests that some soldiers recited short prayers or phrases repeatedly before sleep, not only for spiritual reasons, but also as a way to calm the mind. The repetition itself could create a sense of order within the uncertainty of the night. You begin to feel that effect, the steady cadence, the quiet repetition. It slows your thoughts further, drawing your attention away from the cold, from the ground, from the small discomforts that remain. You do not follow the words exactly, but you follow the rhythm. It steadies you. A faint movement occurs beside you. The man at your side shifts slightly, then stills again. Perhaps he hears it too. Perhaps it reaches him in the same quiet way, offering a small sense of calm within the long night. The voice fades, not suddenly, but gradually. Each phrase softer than the last until it disappears entirely, leaving behind the familiar silence of the camp. You exhale slowly. Your breathing remains steady now, slightly deeper, more relaxed than before. The brief rise in awareness does not linger. It settles quickly, replaced by a softer state that feels easier to hold. A reflective observation, sometimes discussed by historians, is that these small acts of ritual may have helped individuals manage fear, fatigue, and uncertainty, even when conditions remained harsh. The effect may not have been physical, but it shaped how the night was experienced. You sense that now, a subtle shift. Nothing has changed in the air. Nothing has changed in the cold, and yet something feels quieter within you. You draw your cloak closer again, not out of urgency, but out of habit, reinforcing the small space you have created. The fabric presses gently against your face, your chest, your arms, holding what little warmth remains. Your body settles further. The tension that lingered earlier has softened, replaced by a steadier calm that spreads slowly through your limbs. Your muscles loosen, your shoulders drop slightly, your breathing continues its quiet pattern. A distant sound reaches you, very faint. Perhaps another voice, perhaps only the wind moving differently across the land. It does not hold your attention. It passes quickly, leaving behind the same steady stillness. You close your eyes fully. The darkness feels deeper now, more complete, as if the brief interruption has made the return to quiet more noticeable. Your awareness narrows again, focusing only on what remains closest to you. The ground, the cloak, the breath. Everything else fades. You drift again, more easily this time. The earlier restlessness has eased, replaced by a quieter acceptance that allows your body to release what little resistance remains. The cold continues, but it no longer feels sharp. It becomes part of the background once more, something steady and expected. Your thoughts slow, then soften, then disappear. You remain within that gentle rhythm, carried by breath, held by stillness, guided by the quiet patterns that have formed throughout the night. And as the last traces of wakefulness fade, you slip once more into sleep, supported not by comfort, but by the quiet calm that settles in after even the smallest moment of reflection. You rest more deeply now, your body held in that fragile but steady rhythm that has carried you through the long hours so far. The wind continues, the cold remains, yet your awareness has softened to the point where these things no longer pull you fully awake. Then slowly another sensation begins to rise. It is not sudden. It builds quietly. A heaviness in your chest, a faint tightness in your throat. You inhale. The air feels colder than before. Sharper. It lingers for a moment as it settles, leaving a slight dryness behind. You do not move at first, allowing the sensation to become clearer, to define itself without resistance. A commonly accepted understanding of prolonged exposure to cold conditions is that the body can begin to respond in subtle ways before any serious symptoms appear. Stiffness, shallow breathing, and a gradual loss of warmth in certain areas are often the first signs that the night is taking its toll. You feel that now, not strongly, but enough to notice. You shift slightly, your shoulders adjusting beneath the weight of your cloak. The movement is small, careful just enough to ease the pressure that has formed without inviting too much cold to rush in. It helps. A little. Nearby a soft cough breaks the quiet. Then another. Not loud, not urgent, but present. You listen. The sound comes from different directions, faint but repeated, as if several individuals feel the same change within their bodies. The air is colder now, drier, less forgiving with each breath. You draw your cloak closer to your face, covering more of your mouth and nose, allowing your breath to warm the space just in front of you. The air you inhale feels slightly softer this way, less sharp against your throat. A lesser discussed detail from certain historical observations notes that repeated nights in cold, damp conditions often led to minor illness among soldiers. Coughs, chills, and general weakness could spread quietly through a camp, especially when rest and nutrition were limited. You understand how that begins, here, in small ways. Your body responds instinctively, conserving energy, slowing movement, maintaining what warmth it can. You feel a slight stiffness along your back, a lingering heaviness in your limbs that goes beyond simple fatigue. You adjust your position again, slowly, turning just enough to redistribute the pressure along your side, allowing blood to move more freely, easing the tightness that has formed. The movement is careful, deliberate, guided by sensation rather than thought. A short breath escapes you, soft, measured. The man beside you shifts as well, his breathing changing briefly before settling once more. The shared warmth remains though faint, and you draw slightly closer without fully realizing it. It helps. Again, only a little. A reflective idea sometimes explored by historians is that the cumulative effect of cold nights could weaken even strong individuals over time. Each night alone might be endured, but together they created a gradual strain that affected both body and mind. You feel a trace of that strain now. Not overwhelming, but present. A quiet reminder that this night is part of something longer, something that extends beyond this single moment. You breathe slowly. In, out. The rhythm steadies you again, easing the tightness in your chest, allowing your body to settle back into its careful balance. The cold remains, but your adjustments hold, keeping it from deepening too quickly. A faint sound reaches you from further away. A longer cough, then silence. It does not repeat. The camp remains quiet. You close your eyes again, letting your awareness soften, allowing the brief discomfort to fade into the background. Your body continues its quiet work, maintaining warmth, managing strain, holding steady where it can. The ground beneath you feels unchanged, firm, cold, constant. Your cloak remains in place, your small shelter intact, your position stable enough to support rest. You draw your knees in slightly once more, reinforcing the compact shape that holds your warmth. Your hands remain tucked within your clothing, your feet pressed close to your legs. Everything remains contained. A thoughtful observation from researchers suggests that resilience in such conditions often depended on small repeated adjustments, rather than any single solution. Each movement, each choice contributed to the body's ability to endure over time. You recognize that pattern. You have been following it. Without thinking, your breathing deepens again. Your awareness softens. The heaviness in your chest fades, slightly replaced by a steadier calm that allows your body to relax once more. The coughs around you become less frequent, or perhaps simply less noticeable as your focus narrows. The night continues. Unchanged, you drift again, slowly. The sensations that rose begin to fade, blending into the larger experience of the night. The cold, the ground, the weight, the breath, all merging into a single steady presence that no longer demands attention. You remain within it, held, carried. And as your body settles once more into that fragile balance, sleep returns again, quiet and incomplete, yet enough to carry you further through the long unbroken stretch of darkness. You remain within that shallow, fragile rest, your body rising and falling. With each slow breath, your awareness dimmed but not gone. The night feels long, yet something within it has begun to shift again. Not the cold, not the wind. Something softer. You notice it first in the darkness behind your eyes. It feels lighter, less complete, as if the night itself has thinned just slightly. You do not open your eyes at once. You simply remain where you are, sensing the change before seeing it. Then you look, carefully. The sky above is no longer as deep as it was. The darkness holds, but it has lost some of its weight. A faint greyness begins to gather along the horizon, barely visible yet unmistakable once noticed. Morning is approaching. A widely recognized aspect of life in pre-modern settings is that people often became attuned to subtle changes in light long before the sun itself appeared. Without artificial illumination, the transition from night to day unfolded. gradually shaping how individuals experience time and rest. You feel that transition now. Quiet, unhurried. You inhale slowly. The air remains cold, but it feels different, less sharp, as if something within it has shifted along with the light. The wind has softened, no longer pressing as steadily against your back. It moves in gentler patterns, now less insistent. Around you, the camp begins to stir. Not all at once, but gradually. A man nearby shifts his movement slower than before, as if his body resists the return to motion. Another sits up halfway, pausing there, gathering himself before fully rising. The stillness of the night begins to loosen. You feel it in your own body. The heaviness remains, but it has changed. It no longer pulls you downward. Instead, it holds you in place, reluctant to release you into the effort of movement. You remain lying still. For a moment longer, a soft sound reaches you. A quiet groan. Not pain, just stiffness. The kind that comes after hours without movement, when muscles resist the first attempt to shift. You understand it immediately. You feel it too, lingering in your back, your shoulders, your legs. You move slightly, testing. Your joints respond slowly, the motion stiff but manageable. The cold has settled deep, making every movement feel heavier, more deliberate. A lesser-known detail from historical observations is that mornings after cold nights often brought significant stiffness and discomfort, especially for those who had slept on hard ground. Muscles tightened, joints resisted, and it could take time before the body regained its usual range of motion. You experience that now. You draw your arms slightly outward, then back again, feeling the resistance ease just a little. It is not immediate. It comes slowly with each small movement, each careful adjustment. Nearby, more figures begin to rise. Some sit quietly, their heads lowered as if still half within sleep. Others begin to gather their belongings, their movements measured, conserving energy, even as the day begins. A reflective question, sometimes raised by historians, considers how much rest soldiers truly gained during such nights, and how that lack of full recovery affected them in the hours that followed. The answer is uncertain, shaped by individual resilience and circumstance. You feel the result, not fully rested, but enough to rise, enough to continue. The faint light grows stronger now, spreading slowly across the camp. Shapes become clearer. The outlines of cloaks of bodies of scattered belongings emerge from the darkness, returning the world to visibility piece by piece. You sit up, carefully. The movement is slow, deliberate, guided by the stiffness in your body. Your cloak falls slightly from your shoulders, and the cold reaches you more directly again. It feels sharper now without the full protection of your curled position. You adjust it quickly, drawing it close once more. A faint breath escapes you. Longer this time. The air feels clearer in your lungs, though still cold, still dry. You take another breath deeper, allowing your body to fully wake to transition from rest to movement. Around you, the camp continues to stir. Voices return, low at first, then slightly louder. The quiet of the night gives way to the subdued activity of morning as each person begins to prepare for what comes next. You look around. The small shelters, the scattered straw, the overlapping cloaks all remain, but they feel different now, less essential, less immediate. The urgency of the night has passed, replaced by the quiet demands of the day. A thoughtful observation among scholars suggests that these transitions from night to morning were significant moments marking not only the end of a rest, but the beginning of renewed effort. Whatever had been endured during the night became part of what shaped the day ahead. You feel that shift within you. The cold remains, the fatigue lingers, but something else rises alongside them. A quiet readiness. Not energy, not strength, but the simple understanding that you must continue. You move again, slowly. Your body responds, reluctant, but willing. The light grows stronger, still soft and grey, revealing more of the camp with each passing moment. The long night has ended not suddenly, but through this gradual return of visibility, of movement, of sound. You take one more breath, deep, steady, and as you sit there feeling the weight of what has passed and the quiet beginning of what comes next, you understand that the night has not given you comfort, but it has given you enough. You sit in the pale light of early morning, your body slowly adjusting to movement, your breath steady, your awareness fully returned. The night has passed, though its presence still lingers in your limbs, in the stiffness of your joints, in the faint chill that has not yet left your skin. Around you, the camp continues to awaken. Figures rise, cloaks are shaken free of frost, straws pushed aside. The quiet shapes of the night transform back into people, each one carrying the memory of their own small struggle through the cold hours. You watch for a moment, not moving. The ground where you lay still holds the impression of your body, a shallow mark in the straw and earth. It feels strange to see it now, as if it belongs to someone else, someone who endured the night while you simply observed. A commonly accepted understanding of medieval campaigning is that such nights were not unusual but expected. Soldiers learned to endure them not through comfort, but through repetition, through small adjustments, through the quiet acceptance of conditions that could not be changed. You feel that truth now, not as an idea, but as something lived. You stand slowly. Your legs respond with effort, the stiffness still present, though easing with movement. You shift your weight from one foot to the other, allowing your body to adjust to regain balance, to find its rhythm again. The cold remains, but it feels different, less overwhelming, more distant. A curious observation found in some historical reflections is that repeated exposure to such conditions could alter a person's perception of discomfort. What once felt unbearable could become familiar, even manageable, not because it changed, but because the individual did. You sense that change within yourself, subtle, but real. You draw your cloak tighter around your shoulders, not out of urgency, but out of habit, reinforcing the protection it offers as you begin to move. The fabric feels stiff in places marked by the night, but still functional, still enough. Nearby soldiers begin to speak more openly now. Voices rise slightly, not loud, but no longer restrained. There is a different energy in the air, a quiet transition from endurance to action. The night demanded stillness. The day demands movement. You take a step, then another. Each movement loosens the stiffness in your body, returning a sense of control that had faded during the long hours of rest. The ground feels firm beneath your feet, cold but steady, something you can move across rather than lie upon. A reflective question sometimes explored by historians is how these repeated nights shape the long-term experience of soldiers, not only physically but mentally. Did they grow accustomed to the hardship, or did it wear them down over time? The answer remains uncertain, shaped by countless individual experiences. You carry a small part of that question now, in the memory of the night, in the feeling that remains in your body. You look back briefly at the place where you rested, the shallow hollow, the scattered straw, the space where warmth was shared, where adjustments were made, where sleep came in fragments. It is already changing. Footsteps pass over it. Straw shifts. The mark fades. The night leaves no clear trace, only the memory within those who experienced it. You turn away. The camp continues to gather itself, preparing for what comes next. Equipment is lifted, straps tightened, movements becoming more purposeful with each passing moment. The quiet endurance of the night gives way to the quiet determination of the day. You feel your breathing steady, your body more responsive now, the cold still present but no longer pressing in the same way. A thoughtful observation among researchers suggests that resilience in such conditions was not a single act, but a continuous process built night after night, moment after moment, through small decisions and quiet endurance. You understand that now, not as a concept, but as something carried within you. You take another breath, deep, slow. The air feels clearer now, touched by the first light of day, even as it remains cold. It fills your lungs, steadies your body, prepares you for what lies ahead. And as you stand there between the memory of the night and the beginning of the day, you realize that sleep on a medieval battlefield was never about comfort. It was about survival, about adaptation, about finding rest, not where it was offered, but where it could be made. You close your eyes briefly, just for a moment, then open them again. The day has begun, Now, as the light continues to grow and the camp fully awakens, you allow your thoughts to soften once more. The urgency of movement fades for a moment, replaced by a gentler awareness of what has passed. You remember the cold, the ground beneath you, the quiet breaths of those nearby, the small adjustments that made the difference between discomfort and endurance, each moment simple on its own yet together forming something larger. A long night, a shared experience. You feel your body relax slightly even as you stand. The tension of the night has eased, replaced by a calmer state that lingers in the quiet space before the day fully begins. Your breathing slows, your shoulders lower. The sounds around you soften, blending into a distant hum that no longer demands attention. You allow yourself to rest within this moment, just briefly. The memory of the night drifts further away, becoming less immediate, less sharp. It remains, but in a softer form, something that can be held without effort. The cold feels less pressing now. The light continues to grow, and your awareness begins to fade gently, not into sleep, but into a calm stillness that mirrors the quiet rhythm you carried through the night. You take one final slow breath, and let it go. Sleep well,